In this first lesson on measurement, we're going to look first of all at the imperial measurement system. But in this module, we're going to look at the imperial system and the metric system both. And it's important to think about why we're learning both systems. For instance, some of you may be pursuing careers in the trades in the future, and then you may be using the imperial system most of the time. Although even within the trades, if you're doing some government contracts, you may be needing to work in metric. Many of us think in imperial terms. So if you think about your weight or your height, you're probably thinking about pounds and feet and inches rather than kilograms and centimeters. However, many stores and most official measurements are done using the metric system. So when we order sliced meat and so forth, it's usually in grams that we're ordering it. On this chart here, you'll see that we've got most of the common conversions within the imperial system and within the metric system. And in your workbook, you'll see lots of charts like this, and you can flip back and forth to them, but a lot of students start with cue cards so that they don't have to flip back and forth to those charts. Instead, they can use their cue cards and have them handy as they work through this material. I have found that it's helpful to have benchmarks for some measurements so that it's easier to make estimates. For instance, when I stretch my fingers out, I can stretch exactly 8 inches. This has been helpful for me many times, and 8 inches I know is also 20 centimeters, so I can do this across a window and know how wide a window is, for instance. My pinky nail is about 1 centimeter, and I'm wondering if you have benchmarks that you might know of. Can you visualize what 1 inch looks like, what 1 foot looks like, or 1 yard? For instance, most door handles are 1 meter from the floor, so there's another way to visualize some measurements. So starting to look at the imperial measurement system, when we measure length using imperial measurements, we use fractions of an inch, not decimals. So if you think about any measurement unit, and here is a typical school ruler, it's important to know what the notches stand for. Every inch is split in half, and that's usually a larger mark, and so there's the half-inch mark. Then there are other marks, and in this case they're the same size as the half, and they represent 1/4 and 3/4. So any measurement that goes exactly to those is easy to do because it's either 1/4, 1/2, or 3/4. Notice how each of those sections is further broken down, and those medium length little notches are 1/8, and then the tiniest notches are 1/16. And before you set about doing any measuring, make sure that you know what the notches are as you're measuring across. So this ruler measures everything in 1/16 of an inch, so you can count the 1/16 of an inch as you go across. And it's important also to remember to always reduce your fractions to the lowest terms. So one thing to note here is that the examples used in this lesson and in all of the lessons are the exact same examples that are from your workbooks, so you might want to have your workbook open and follow along as we go through them. So here's an example 1. What is the length of the line segment? If I look really closely at this, I can see that that line segment ends on one of the tiniest notches, so it's going to be 1/16, and I could count from the 2 and I could count up, or I could count down from the 3 inches and go down 3 from 16. Either way, I'll see that I'm at 2 and 13/16 of an inch. Okay, notice that the short form for an inch is a quotation mark there, two little apostrophes. You could also write 2 and 13/16 inches. Okay, you can write out the word or use the short form. Either one is correct, but it is important that you always include the units for every measurement that you do. If we look at example 2, to look at the length of that line segment, notice how the end of it is at one of those medium-sized notches. So we could count by eighths and see that it's 1 inch and 1, 2, 3/8, or we could go 1 and we could count every single notch and we could say 1 and 6/16 and reduce that to 1 and 3/8 inches, and always again include the units with your answer. In example 3, we're converting 5 feet and 4 inches into inches only, okay? So if we think about the conversion, we know that there are 12 inches per foot, so we take our 5 feet and multiply by 12, and then add the extra 4 inches, so we get 64 inches. If you need to use a calculator to do this, you can, although it's very handy to think of what the 12 times table and know at least the first 7 or 8 of those, and then you can do these in your head. Okay, so we're multiplying by 12 because there's 12 inches per foot. In example 4, we're converting 93 inches into feet and inches. Now here you might like a calculator, or again use your 12 times tables, but if I do 93 divided by 12, I'll see how many whole feet are in, and I get 7.75. So that means there's 7 feet and 0.75 feet. So if I take the 0.75, the decimal part of that answer, and multiply by 12, I get 9. So 93 inches will be 7 feet, 9 inches. Okay. So example 5, let's add the following imperial measures. So we're adding 10 feet 9 inches and 6 feet 3 inches. So if we do that, we're going to get 16 feet. We're adding the feet together and we're adding the inches together. So we get 16 feet plus 12 inches. And I should have written the word feet in there, so I'm just going to squeeze that in, plus 12 inches. So, but 12 inches is 1 foot, so I've actually got 16 feet plus 1 foot, so that gives me 17 feet. If I add 5 feet 10 inches and 2 feet 9 inches, I get 7 feet, I get 7 feet plus 19 inches. So I'm going to look at that 19 inches and convert it to feet and inches. So now I have 7 feet plus 12 goes into 19 once, so I've got plus 1 foot plus 7 inches. So now I have 8 feet and 7 inches. And that's it for this lesson. So now you can go ahead and do the questions in your workbook that match with this.